The encrypted phone buzzed at exactly 0342 hours. Lieutenant Elena Reeves came awake instantly. No transition between sleep and consciousness. No moment of confusion or disorientation. 6 years as a Navy SEAL had trained that out of her completely. She was already calculating threat assessments before her feet touched the cold floor of her quarters at Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. The room was dark, silent except for the distant crash of Pacific waves against the beach where BUD/S candidates suffered through Hell Week. Elena had survived that beach 6 years ago, had emerged from the crucible as one of fewer than 50 women to ever earn the SEAL Trident. Now she stared at the glowing screen of her secure phone. The message was brief, ominous, the kind of words that change lives. Report to NCIS Headquarters San Diego, 0800 hours, classification eyes only. Authorization Deputy Director. Elena read it twice. Her pulse held steady, controlled, disciplined. The heartbeat of someone who had learned to master fear in places where fear meant death. NCIS didn't summon SEAL operators at 3 in the morning unless something had gone catastrophically wrong. She ran through her recent operations in her mind. Her last combat deployment had been 8 months ago. Iraq. Counterterrorism. 3 high-value targets eliminated. 0 American casualties. Everything by the book. Sanitized. Approved through proper channels. So why was Naval Criminal Investigative Service calling her in? The answer would arrive in less than 5 hours, and it would shatter everything she thought she knew about honor, about brotherhood, about the uniform she had sworn to protect. But she didn't know that yet. Not yet. Elena set the phone down and moved to the window. Outside, the California night stretched vast and dark over the ocean. Somewhere out there, SEAL teams were conducting operations in countries most Americans couldn't find on a map. Young men and women were risking their lives for a nation that would never know their names. That was the life she had chosen, the life her father had lived, the life he had died for. She pushed the thought away, compartmentalized it the way she had been trained. Emotion compromised operational effectiveness. And whatever waited for her at NCIS headquarters, she would need every edge she could find. Sleep was impossible now. Elena began her pre-mission routine. Shower, dress, equipment check. By 0530 she was ready. By 0600 she was on the road. And by 0800 her entire world would change. Elena dressed in her service khakis with the precision of ritual. The uniform was crisp, regulation perfect, every crease sharp enough to cut. The ribbons on her chest told a story most people couldn't read. Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal with Valor Device, Combat Action Ribbon, Iraq Campaign Medal, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, and the Golden Trident, the symbol that marked her as one of fewer than 50 women who had ever earned the SEAL qualification in the history of the United States Navy. She paused at the mirror, 28 years old, athletic build hidden under the professional uniform, brown hair pulled back in regulation style, green eyes that had seen things no training could prepare you for. The scars were hidden under her clothes. 2 bullet wounds, one from Kandahar province, where an insurgent's AK-47 round had punched through her left shoulder during a compound raid. She had killed him with her sidearm before the pain even registered. One from Mosul, where a sniper's bullet had grazed her ribs during a hostage rescue. She had completed the mission with blood soaking through her body armor. Permanent reminders that freedom had a price, and someone had to pay it. Her father had taught her that. Lieutenant Michael Reeves, SEAL Team 4, decorated veteran of operations in Colombia, Somalia, and a dozen other places that still didn't officially exist in any record. Killed in a training accident when Elena was 13 years old. The official report said mechanical failure. A helicopter crashed during night operations at a training facility in Virginia. The kind of accident that happens sometimes in a profession where men and women push machines and bodies to their absolute limits. The whispered conversations at his funeral said something else. Negligence. Cover-up. Elena had overheard fragments, her mother crying to her grandmother. Words like investigation and stonewalled, and they're protecting someone. But she had been 13 years old, grieving, confused, and the adults had stopped talking whenever she entered the room. The military had given her father a hero's burial. Full honors at Arlington National Cemetery, a folded flag presented to her mother while a bugler played taps, and a young sailor had stood beside the grave, delivering a speech about brotherhood and honor that had stayed with Elena for 15 years. She remembered his face, earnest, sincere, maybe 19 or 20 years old. She remembered his words. SEALs protect their own. Your father died serving something greater than himself. His sacrifice will never be forgotten. Elena had believed those words, had built her entire life around them, had endured the brutal punishment of BUD/S training because she wanted to honor her father's memory. She had no idea that the man who spoke those words at her father's funeral was now running a predatory network that had destroyed 17 women's lives. She had no idea that by the end of this day, she would be asked to let him destroy her too. The drive to NCIS headquarters took 37 minutes through pre-dawn San Diego traffic. Elena counted seconds like breathing, a habit from tactical operations where timing meant the difference between mission success and body bags. The facility was a nondescript concrete building near the waterfront, deliberately unremarkable, the kind of place that processed intelligence and conducted investigations while the rest of the city slept. Security cleared her through 3 checkpoints: retinal scan, fingerprints, background verification against classified personnel databases. By the time she reached the 4th-floor conference room, it was 07:56 hours. She arrived early for everything. Punctuality was respect. Tardiness was tactical disadvantage. The conference room was empty except for one man. He stood at the window overlooking the harbor, his back to the door, hands clasped behind him in a posture Elena recognized immediately. Military bearing, the kind that never really faded, even decades after retirement. The man was tall, maybe 6'2", steel gray hair cut in a style that suggested he'd worn a uniform for most of his life. His civilian clothes, dark slacks and a button-down shirt, couldn't hide the physique of someone who still maintained combat readiness despite being well past 60. Lieutenant Reeves? He didn't turn around. His voice was gravelly, worn smooth by years of command. You're 2 minutes early. That's good. Punctuality suggests discipline. Discipline suggests you might survive what I'm about to ask you to do. He turned, and Elena found herself face-to-face with Colonel William Garrett. She knew him by reputation. Every SEAL did. Retired SEAL Team 6, living legend in special operations communities. The man who had written half the tactical doctrine Elena had studied at basic underwater demolition training. 3 silver stars, 2 bronze stars with valor, 27 years of service. Operations so classified that most of them still didn't officially exist. He had been one of the founding members of DevGru, the unit that would later become famous for the Bin Laden raid. He had trained operators who had become legends themselves. His name was spoken with reverence in every team room from Coronado to Virginia Beach. Sir, Elena came to attention automatically, respect overriding the fact that he was technically a civilian now. At ease, Lieutenant, Garrett gestured to the conference table. Sit down. What I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. If you decline the mission I'm offering, you walk out that door and we never speak of this conversation again. His eyes met hers, assessing, measuring. Understood? Understood, sir. They sat across from each other at the conference table. Garrett pulled out a tablet, entered a 12-digit passcode, slid it across the polished surface. The screen displayed a map of Nevada, zoomed in on Naval Air Station Falcon, a training facility about 60 miles east of Reno. Red dots clustered around one building on the base, each dot representing a data point in whatever investigation had brought Elena here. NAS Falcon. Garrett's voice was clinical, emotionless, the tone of someone briefing an operation. Population approximately 700 active duty personnel, mix of Navy, Marines, Air Force. Primary mission is fighter weapons training, clean facility, good leadership, stellar reputation. He paused. Or so everyone thought until 3 years ago. He swiped the screen. 17 photographs appeared, all women, all in uniform, ranging in age from 19 to 34. Corporal Lisa Morrison, Marine Corps, assaulted September 2021. He swiped again. Petty Officer Jessica Palmer, Navy, assaulted November 2021. Again. Private First Class Rebecca Anderson, Marine Corps, assaulted January 2022. Garrett continued through all 17 names. Each photograph was a face. Each face was a story. Each story was a betrayal. Women who had volunteered to serve their country, who had endured boot camp and specialty training and the 1,000 daily challenges of military life, who had earned their places in the armed forces through competence and dedication, and who had been violated by men wearing the same uniform, protected by a system that valued reputation over justice. 17 formal complaints filed with NCIS over 3 years, Garrett said. Every single complaint involved the same pattern: mandatory social events at the base recreation building, forced alcohol consumption, escalating harassment, physical assault. His voice hardened. Sexual assault. Elena studied the photographs, memorized faces. These weren't just statistics on a briefing slide. These were her sisters in uniform. And in every single case, Garrett continued, the complaints were dismissed as unsubstantiated due to insufficient evidence. Elena looked up sharply. How was that possible? 17 victims, same pattern, same location, and nobody saw a connection? Oh, someone saw the connection. Garrett's expression darkened. Commander Victoria Hadley, the executive officer at Falcon. She personally reviewed 14 of those complaints, marked every one as unsubstantiated, transferred the victims to different duty stations within 3 weeks of their reports. He pulled up another file. The other 3 complaints never made it past unit-level investigation. Victims were pressured to withdraw them. That's not negligence, Elena said quietly. That's conspiracy. Correct. Garrett leaned forward, and it gets worse. A photograph appeared on screen. The man was 34 years old. Fit, dark hair and a regulation cut, the kind of face that would blend into any military crowd. Unremarkable, except for his eyes. Even in a service photograph, something about his expression suggested cruelty held in check by military discipline. A predator wearing the mask of a professional. Staff Sergeant Derek Lawson, Garrett said, 12 years in the Navy, multiple deployments, respected by his chain of command, spotless service record. He's been at Falcon for 6 years. He paused. We believe he's been running this predatory network the entire time. Elena stared at the photograph. Something stirred in her memory, a face she had seen before, a voice she had heard in a moment of profound grief. We've identified 5 primary suspects working with Lawson, Garrett continued. All male, all enlisted or junior officers, all with service records that are too perfect to be real. He pulled up more photographs. Petty Officer Tyler Brennan, 31 years old, aggressive personality, always filming everything with his phone, creates documentation to use as blackmail against victims. Another photo. Corporal Connor Hadley, 27 years old, Commander Hadley's nephew. That family connection explains how the institutional protection works. Elena barely heard him. She was staring at Derek Lawson's face, trying to place where she had seen him before. And then it hit her, like a bullet to the chest. 15 years ago, Arlington National Cemetery. Elena was 13 years old, standing beside her mother in the cold January rain, watching them lower her father's flag-draped coffin into the ground. The honor guard fired their rifles. 3 volleys, 21 guns saluting a fallen warrior. The bugler played taps, the mournful notes drifting across acres of white headstones. Thousands of graves, thousands of stories, thousands of sacrifices. And a young sailor stepped forward to deliver the eulogy. He was maybe 19 or 20, fresh-faced, sincere, his uniform perfect, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Lieutenant Michael Reeves was more than a SEAL, he said. He was a brother. He was family. He taught me that honor isn't just a word, it's a way of life. Elena remembered standing there in the rain, tears streaming down her face, her mother's hand gripping hers so tightly it hurt. SEALs protect their own, the young sailor continued. That's what Lieutenant Reeves believed. That's what he lived. And that's what we will continue to do in his memory. After the ceremony, the young sailor had approached Elena and her mother. I'm so sorry for your loss, ma'am, he said to her mother. Your husband saved my life during training. I wouldn't be standing here without him. Then he had knelt down to Elena's level. His eyes were kind. His voice was gentle. Your father was the bravest man I ever knew, he said, and I promise you, his sacrifice will never be forgotten. He had hugged her, a 13-year-old girl crying at her father's funeral, comforted by a stranger who spoke of honor and brotherhood. Elena had carried those words for 15 years, had built her entire career around them, had become a SEAL because a young man at her father's funeral had shown her what honor looked like. Now she stared at the photograph on Garrett's tablet. Derek Lawson, the same man, 15 years older, harder. Something dark behind his eyes that hadn't been there at the funeral. But unmistakably the same man who had spoken about honor while her father's coffin was lowered into the ground. The same man who had hugged a grieving child and promised that sacrifice would be remembered. The same man who had spent the last 6 years destroying women's lives. Lieutenant, Garrett's voice pulled her back to the present. Are you all right? Elena's hands were trembling. She forced them still. I know this man, she said quietly. Garrett looked up sharply. Explain. 15 years ago, my father's funeral, Derek Lawson gave the eulogy. He talked about honor, about brotherhood, about how SEALs protect their own. She met Garrett's eyes. He hugged me while I cried. He told me my father's sacrifice would never be forgotten. The silence in the conference room was absolute. Garrett was still for a long moment. Then he spoke carefully. Lieutenant, I need you to understand something. The man who comforted you at that funeral might have been genuine then. But the man operating at NAS Falcon right now is a predator who's assaulted at least 17 women and gotten away with it because the system protects him. He paused. People change, especially when they discover they can commit crimes without consequences. Elena stared at Lawson's photograph, the man who had spoken about her father's honor, the man who had promised that SEALs protect their own, the man who had spent 6 years destroying women who trusted the same system her father died serving. What do you need from me? She asked. Her voice was steady now. Her resolve was absolute. Garrett stood and walked to the window, his silhouette dark against the brightening sky. NCIS has tried standard investigations. We've interviewed victims, reviewed evidence, analyzed patterns. Everything points to systematic abuse enabled by institutional protection. He turned back to face her. But we can't get convictions. Victims recant under pressure. Evidence disappears. Witnesses develop selective amnesia. The chain of command closes ranks. His jaw tightened. Every legal avenue has been exhausted. So you want an undercover operation? I want you to infiltrate the network. Garrett returned to the table, sat down across from her. You'll pose as a newly transferred logistics officer. Boring assignment, administrative work. The kind of role that makes operators tune out and predators see opportunity. He pulled up another file. You'll attend their social events. You'll document everything with surveillance equipment hidden in standard issue items. His voice dropped. And when they target you, because they will target you, you'll gather evidence comprehensive enough that no defense attorney, no corrupt commander, no institutional protection can make it disappear. The words hung in the air between them. Elena understood immediately what Garrett was really saying. He was asking her to become bait, to allow herself to be victimized, to endure assault for the sake of evidence. You're asking me to let them hurt me. I'm asking you to complete the hardest mission any operator ever faces. Garrett leaned forward. I've sent SEALs into hostile territory knowing some wouldn't come back. I've ordered men to sacrifice themselves for strategic objectives. I've made the calculations that turn human beings into acceptable losses. His voice was heavy. But what I'm asking you to do is different. I'm asking you to walk into a situation where you'll be assaulted, where you'll be degraded, where you'll be violated. And I'm asking you to endure it long enough to document everything. He met her eyes. That's not combat, that's something worse. Why me? The question came out steady, professional, but underneath Elena needed to know. Garrett was quiet for a moment, then he spoke. Because you're one of the best tactical operators in naval special warfare. Because you have the training to survive whatever they do. Because you have the discipline to maintain operational focus while enduring trauma. He paused. Because you're a woman, which makes you vulnerable to their targeting. There are other female operators. None with your specific qualifications. Garrett pulled a thick folder from his briefcase, slid it across the table. I've watched your career for 6 years, Lieutenant. Since the day you graduated BUD/S training. Since you became the 47th woman to earn the Trident. He opened the folder. Service records, after action reports, commendations. I've read every report from your deployments. You're not just skilled, you're committed to something larger than yourself. You understand sacrifice in ways most people never will. Elena looked at her own service record, the missions, the wounds, the choices she had made in places where choices meant life or death. There's another reason, Garrett said quietly. Isn't there? Elena met his eyes. Lawson spoke at my father's funeral. He talked about honor and brotherhood while my father's body was being buried. He promised me that SEALs protect their own. Her voice hardened. And then he spent the next 15 years destroying women who trusted the same system my father died serving. Garrett nodded slowly. I thought that might factor into your decision. It doesn't factor in, sir. It's the deciding factor. Elena closed the folder. 17 women have been silenced. 17 women tried to get justice and were crushed by a system that was supposed to protect them. She leaned forward. Someone has to stop him. Someone has to make sure there isn't an 18th victim, or a 19th, or a 100th. Her eyes were hard. That someone is going to be me. Garrett outlined the mission parameters with military precision. 6 weeks maximum. Elena would arrive at NAS Falcon as a logistics officer on routine rotation. Boring, administrative, the kind of assignment that made predators see opportunity rather than threat. She would wear a fitness tracker containing military-grade surveillance technology, high-definition camera disguised as a sensor, directional microphone sensitive enough to capture whispered conversations across a room, encrypted transmission to NCIS servers every 30 seconds. Everything she saw, everything she heard, everything that happened would be documented in real time. We've analyzed Lawson's pattern, Garrett said. He targets new female personnel within the first 2 weeks. Initial contact is friendly, professional, building trust. He pulled up a behavioral analysis. By week 3, the invitations start. Social events at the recreation building. Mandatory attendance implied but never officially ordered. Week 4, the pressure increases. Alcohol, games designed to test boundaries and break down resistance. Week 5, the assault occurs. Elena absorbed the information, calculated variables, ran tactical scenarios in her mind. What happens if I fight back, she asked. If they attack and I defend myself? Garrett's expression was pained. Then the operation fails. He stood, walked to the window, his back to her again. If you fight, they'll claim you initiated violence. If you resist effectively, they'll mark you as hostile and target someone else. If you extract early, we'll have partial evidence at best, the kind that gets dismissed in court. He turned. The only way this works is if you let them commit crimes fully, completely, irrefutably, while cameras record everything. His voice dropped. That means enduring whatever they do until the evidence is comprehensive enough for convictions that stick. The weight of what he was asking settled over Elena. She understood sacrifice, had made peace with the possibility of dying in combat, but this was different. This was volunteering to be violated, choosing to be victimized, accepting degradation for the sake of justice. There's something else, Garrett said. He sat back down, his movements slower now, careful. I have a heart condition, controlled with medication, but still a risk. I'm telling you this because your primary support might not be available for the entire operation. Elena processed this new variable. If something happens to you, Agent Rachel Whitmore takes over. 15 years with NCIS, solid investigator, but she doesn't have tactical experience like I do. He met her eyes. If I become unavailable, trust your training, trust your instincts, and remember, this mission is voluntary. You can abort at any time without prejudice. Elena thought about her father, about the funeral, about Derek Lawson's speech about honor, about 17 women who had been destroyed while the system protected their abuser. When do I start? Garrett pulled out a plane ticket. Transport leaves Miramar at 1400 hours. You'll arrive at Falcon by 1630. Check in with base administration by 1800. He handed her a small device disguised as a standard military ID holder. Emergency extraction. Squeeze this twice rapidly, and a tactical team breaches whatever building you're in within 90 seconds. Elena felt the weight in her palm. 90 seconds. A lot could happen in 90 seconds. A lot of damage could be inflicted. A lot of trauma could be caused. Extraction is a last resort, Garrett continued. Life-threatening situations only. Because extraction means mission failure. It means Lawson and his network continue operating. It means the next woman who reports assault gets dismissed just like the previous 17. Elena understood. The mission required everything, and she would give it. I need one thing from you, sir. Name it. I need your word that if I do this, if I endure whatever comes, the evidence will be used, that these men will be prosecuted to the fullest extent, that everyone who enabled them faces consequences. She leaned forward. Because if I'm going to sacrifice my safety, my dignity, potentially my psychological health, I need to know it's for something permanent, something that protects every woman who serves after me. Garrett stood, came to attention, extended his hand. You have my word as a SEAL, as an officer, and as someone who spent 43 years defending this country. The evidence you gather will be used to destroy everyone involved in this conspiracy. Elena shook his hand, felt the strength in his grip, the calluses from decades of hard training. There's something else I should tell you, Garrett said quietly. His expression shifted, something vulnerable showing through the command presence. I knew your father. He was one of the finest operators I ever served with. Saved my life twice. Once in Colombia. Once in the circumstances I still can't discuss. Elena felt her breath catch. You knew him? I was his commanding officer for 3 years. When he died, I promised myself I would watch over his family. I've followed your career from the beginning. Not just because you're exceptional, because you're Michael Reeves's daughter. Garrett's eyes were bright. He would be proud of you, Elena. Proud of the warrior you've become. And proud of what you're about to do. Elena felt something shift in her chest. A crack in the armor she had maintained since childhood. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when this is over. When Lawson is in prison and the system is reformed. He released her hand. Now go complete the mission. And come back in one piece so I can buy you a beer and tell you stories about your father that your mother probably never shared. Elena walked to the elevator, the weight of the mission settling over her shoulders. Behind her, Garrett watched her go. An old warrior sending a young one into battle, hoping he would live long enough to see her return. The military transport touched down at NAS Falcon at 16:27 hours. Elena grabbed her single duffel bag and stepped into the Nevada heat. The desert air hit her like a furnace blast. Dry, relentless. The kind of environment that tested everyone who served here. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks sharp against the endless blue sky. The landscape was beautiful in a harsh way. Unforgiving. The kind of terrain that didn't tolerate weakness. The base itself looked clean, almost pristine. Fresh paint on buildings, manicured lawns, everything maintained to standards that suggested pride in appearance. But Elena had learned long ago that clean exteriors often hid rotting foundations. That institutional corruption thrived best where surfaces looked immaculate. She walked toward the administration building, cataloging details with tactical precision. Guard posts at the main gate, security cameras at predictable intervals, vehicle traffic patterns suggesting standard shift changes. And the people. She watched how they moved. The men walked with confidence, ownership, the kind of body language that said this place belonged to them. The women were different, hunched shoulders, downcast eyes, movements that stayed close to walls and avoided open spaces. The body language of prey animals in predator territory. Elena recognized it because she had seen it before. In villages where insurgents operated with impunity, in neighborhoods controlled by cartels, in any place where the powerful preyed on the vulnerable without consequence. She filed the observation away. First confirmation that Garrett's intelligence was accurate. Elena checked in with base administration at 17:43 hours. The woman behind the desk was young, maybe 22, dark circles under her eyes, hands that trembled slightly when she processed Elena's paperwork. Your quarters are in Building 7, Room 214, she said without making eye contact. Dining facility hours are posted. Welcome to Falcon. She slid a map across the desk, then paused, glanced at the security camera in the corner of the room. Her voice dropped. If anyone invites you to recreation building events after hours, she adjusted her phrasing carefully. You should probably check your schedule first. Make sure you are not overcommitted. It was the most careful warning Elena had ever received. The woman's eyes said everything her words couldn't. Danger here. Women aren't safe. Be careful. Thank you, Elena said. I appreciate the advice. The woman nodded once, quick, nervous. Good luck, ma'am. Elena walked out into the desert evening. The sun was setting behind the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Beautiful. And underneath the beauty, a darkness that had been destroying women for 6 years. She found her quarters in Building 7. Small room. Functional. Standard bachelor officer quarters configuration. Bed. Desk. Wall locker. Private bathroom. Elena unpacked with methodical precision, placed her gear in tactical positions, equipment accessible within seconds if needed. Then she activated the fitness tracker. The device looked like any commercial model. Black band, digital display showing heart rate, steps, calories. But the technology inside was military grade. High-definition camera disguised as a sensor. Directional microphone sensitive enough to capture whispered conversations. Encrypted transmission to NCIS servers. Biometric monitoring that would track her stress levels throughout the operation. The display flickered once. Recording active. Transmission confirmed. Mission status operational. Elena tested her backup communication system. Microscopic earpiece paired with a subvocal microphone sewn into her collar. Direct communication with NCIS command without visible movement or audible speech. Com check. Garrett's voice came through immediately. Lima Charlie 5 by 5. You're live, Lieutenant. I'm monitoring your biometrics in real time. Understood, sir. Get some rest. Tomorrow, you start building your cover. And Elena? Sir? Trust your training. You're the best operator for this mission. That's why I chose you. Copy that. The line went quiet. Elena stood at the window of her small room. Outside, the Nevada desert stretched vast and empty under the emerging stars. Somewhere on this base, Derek Lawson was planning his next assault. Somewhere, another woman was being groomed for victimization. Somewhere, the system was protecting predators while crushing those who tried to speak up. Tomorrow, Elena would begin the process of tearing it all down. But tonight, she allowed herself one moment of doubt, one moment of fear, one moment of wondering if she was strong enough for what lay ahead. Then she pushed it aside, compartmentalized it, locked it away where it couldn't compromise operational effectiveness. She was a Navy SEAL. She had survived combat in 7 countries. She had been shot twice and kept fighting. She could survive this too. She had to. For the 17 women who had been silenced. For every woman who would serve after her. For her father's memory. And for the 13-year-old girl who had believed Derek Lawson when he spoke about honor. 2 days of reconnaissance. Elena established her cover through routine activities. Reported to Commander Victoria Hadley for in-processing. Endured the woman's false warmth and carefully worded suggestions about attending morale events to show team spirit. Walked the base perimeter, memorizing blind spots and exit routes. Observed Lawson's network in action. They operated like a well-trained unit. Lawson at the center, directing without obvious commands. Brennan always filming, always watching, building a library of compromising material. Connor Hadley using his connection to the XO to ensure institutional protection. The others playing supporting roles, blocking exits, providing social pressure, creating environments where resistance became impossible. Elena cataloged their patterns, documented their tactics, built a target package that would eventually destroy them all. But it was the women she watched most closely. They moved differently here, always in groups after 1,700 hours, always scanning their surroundings, always positioning themselves with backs to walls in common areas. On Wednesday morning, Elena was in the base gym when she observed the first significant incident. A young woman was using the bench press, 23 or 24 years old, athletic build. the focused intensity of someone using physical training to process emotional pain. Tyler Brennan approached, blocked her path to the water fountain. You missed a spot on that bench, Holloway. Wipe it down again. The woman, Holloway, looked up. Recognition flickered in her eyes. Fear, then resignation. She bent to wipe the already clean bench. That's better. Brennan's smile showed teeth. You're real thorough when you want to be. He walked away laughing. The other women in the gym found reasons to leave. Elena approached after Brennan was gone. You okay? Holloway looked up, startled, wary. Fine, just fine. But her hands were shaking. I'm Elena. Just transferred in. Megan Holloway. The name triggered recognition. One of the 17, assaulted 9 months ago, complaint dismissed as unsubstantiated. You want to get coffee sometime? Elena asked. Compare notes on this place? Megan studied her face, looking for something. Threat assessment of a different kind. No, she said finally, but I should tell you something. She lowered her voice. Don't go to any social events at the recreation building. No matter who invites you, no matter what they say about team building. Her eyes were intense, haunted. Just don't. Wait, Megan's expression closed. Because I went 9 months ago, and I'm still trying to survive what happened. She grabbed her gym bag. Be careful, Elena. This place isn't what it looks like. She walked away, leaving Elena with confirmation of Garrett's intelligence and a face to remember when the mission got hard. Thursday evening, 2004 hours. Elena's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Friday night, 2100 hours, recreation building, team bonding event, and attendance strongly encouraged. See you there, Lieutenant. The message was unsigned, but Elena didn't need a signature. Lawson had noticed her, had identified her as a potential target, and now the invitation had been extended, wrapped in military language about team cohesion, but underneath carrying the same threat that 17 women before her had received. Attend or be marked, participate or face consequences. Elena's response was brief. Roger that. What's the dress code? The reply came 30 seconds later. Casual. No rank. Just people being people. Translation: come without protection. Come ready to be vulnerable. Come ready to be prey. Elena activated her secure comm. First contact established. Friday 2100. Proceeding as planned. Garrett's response was immediate. Copy that. Tactical teams are staged. Emergency extraction on your signal. His voice carried tension. But remember, we need comprehensive evidence. Extraction is last resort only. Understood, sir. And Elena, I'll be monitoring your biometrics throughout. If anything looks wrong, I'll make the call even if you don't signal. Appreciated, sir. The line went quiet. Elena set her phone down, stared at the ceiling of her quarters. Tomorrow night, she would walk into that recreation building knowing what would happen, knowing these men would target her, knowing she would have to endure whatever came to gather evidence. She thought about Megan Holloway, about the fear in her eyes, about 17 women who had tried to speak up and been silenced. Someone had to stop this. Someone had to make sure there wouldn't be more victims. Elena Reeves was going to be that someone, no matter the cost. Friday. The day arrived with desert clarity. Elena went through her cover routine. Physical training at 0530, breakfast at 0700. Administrative duties from 0800 to 1700. Throughout the day, she observed Lawson's network preparing. Brennan making runs to the package store. Connor Hadley having casual conversations with female personnel. Recruitment pitches disguised as friendliness. Lawson himself staying in the background, directing, coordinating, the commanding officer of a predatory unit. At 1430, Elena encountered Megan Holloway again. The young corporal was leaving the base medical building, eyes red, hands trembling. Holloway. Megan turned, saw Elena. Something shifted in her expression. You got the invitation. It wasn't a question. Yes. And you're going to go. I have to. Megan's laugh was bitter, sharp, broken. That's what I told myself 9 months ago. I have to. For my career, for my reputation, because refusing would make me a target. She stepped closer. You know what I learned? You're a target either way. The only difference is whether you walk into the trap or get dragged in. Maybe this time will be different. It won't be. Tears filled Megan's eyes. They'll destroy you like they destroyed me, like they destroyed all of us. And then they'll transfer you out before you can cause problems. And Commander Hadley will mark your complaint as unsubstantiated, and everyone will forget you existed. She grabbed Elena's arm, her grip desperate. Don't go, please, just don't go. Elena looked at this woman, 23 years old, broken by men who wore the same uniform, silenced by a system that should have protected her. What if I could stop them? Elena asked quietly. You can't. What if I could make sure no one else ever gets hurt? Megan studied her face, looking for something. Hope, or maybe just proof that hope still existed. Who are you? She whispered. Someone who's going to make sure your story gets told. All of your stories. Elena squeezed her hand. Will you trust me? Just for tonight? Megan was silent, then she nodded. I don't know why, but yes, I'll trust you. Thank you. Elena walked away, carrying the weight of 17 broken women and the determination to make sure there wouldn't be more. Friday night, 2100 hours. Elena stood outside the recreation building. The desert air had cooled with sunset, stars emerging in the vast Nevada sky. The Milky Way visible in a way it never was in cities, a river of light stretching across the darkness. She was dressed in civilian clothes. Olive green V-neck shirt, cargo pants, combat boots, because even undercover, she refused to wear anything that compromised her ability to move. The fitness tracker was on her wrist, fully charged, transmitting. Adrenaline hummed through her veins. The familiar electricity before combat. Anticipation, not fear. She touched her collar where the subvocal microphone was hidden. Moving in, Garrett's voice came through her earpiece. Copy that. We're tracking you. Extraction team is staged 2 miles out. 90 seconds on your signal. Understood. Elena, be careful. Always am, sir. She walked to the door and knocked. Tyler Brennan answered, beer in hand, music loud behind him. His smile was practiced, friendly, the expression of someone who had perfected the art of seeming harmless. Lieutenant Reeves, glad you could make it. He stepped us and, come on in, we're just getting started. The room held 14 people, 6 members of Lawson's core network, 3 support personnel, 5 women who looked like they desperately wanted to be anywhere else. Their body language told the story. Shoulders hunched, eyes down, careful movements. People who had learned to make themselves small in threatening spaces. Derek Lawson approached immediately. 2 beers in his hands. Lieutenant Reeves, welcome to the team. He pushed 1 beer into her hands before she could refuse. First one's mandatory, house rules, everyone drinks. Elena felt the cold bottle in her grip. The first small violation. Forced compliance disguised as hospitality. I don't usually drink on duty days, she said. Testing, observing. Nobody's on duty here. Brennan clapped her shoulder, his grip harder than friendly. This is team bonding, getting to know each other without all the rank bullshit. He leaned closer, his breath hot against her ear. You're not a lieutenant tonight. You're just Elena, and Elena drinks with the team. The pressure was subtle but clear. Comply or be marked. Participate or face consequences. Elena lifted the beer, pretended to drink, actually let most of it run down her chin onto her shirt. Enthusiastic, Lawson laughed. I like that. His eyes tracked the liquid soaking through her shirt, and Elena understood. The night was just beginning. The evening progressed with calculated precision. Games designed to humiliate, dares that tested boundaries, challenges that forced compliance. Elena watched the pattern unfold. They didn't assault immediately. They built toward it. Each step small enough to seem harmless. The cumulative effect designed to break down resistance. At 21:34 hours, they started targeting the other women directly. A young private was pulled into truth or dare. When she chose truth, Connor Hadley mocked her for being boring. When she switched to dare, he made her sit on Brennan's lap. The woman's face flushed with humiliation, but she complied, because the alternative was worse. Elena's fitness tracker recorded everything. The coerced contact, The harassment disguised as games, the way the men worked together with practiced efficiency. At 21:56 hours, they turned their attention to Elena. Reeves, truth or dare? Lawson's eyes were calculating, measuring. Truth. Boring. Brennan groaned. Come on, don't be a prude. The language was deliberately crude, designed to provoke. Elena could stop this now, could assert authority, could extract with evidence of harassment, but that wasn't enough. 17 women had reported harassment and been dismissed. She needed worse. Fine, dare. Lawson's smile widened. I dare you to take off that shirt. Show the team you're not too good for us. Silence. Everyone watching. No. Wrong answer. Lawson's expression shifted, friendly mask slipping. You came to our event. You accepted our invitation. Now you participate like everyone else. I said no. Then you're not really part of the team, are you? He gestured to Connor. Nobody leaves early. That's disrespectful. Connor moved to block the door. Elena's heart rate climbed, transmitted in real time. Move, Corporal. That's an order. Rank doesn't mean shit here. Brennan grabbed her arm, his grip hard enough to bruise. You're going to sit down and do what you're told, or we're going to make you. Physical assault, captured on camera, but Elena didn't fight. The mission required more. Lawson stepped close, his face inches from hers. You don't understand how this works yet, but you will. His voice dropped, cold, controlled. You're not in control here. You don't give orders. You do what we tell you. This is assault. You're assaulting a superior officer. Who's going to believe you? Lawson laughed. You came here voluntarily. You drank with us. You played games. You're in civilian clothes at a social event. He leaned closer. You really think anyone's going to believe you were forced? His smile was ugly. That's how this always works. They never believe the women. They always believe us. There it was, the confession she needed. Admission that this was systematic, that they had done it before, that the system protected them, all captured on recording. How many women have you done this to? Elena asked quietly. Does it matter? Brennan said. They all ended up transferred or quiet. Neither will you, Lawson added. Why do you think that? Because I've been doing this for 6 years. Lawson's voice carried absolute confidence. Across 3 different bases. Because the system protects us. Because commanding officers care more about unit cohesion than some female personnel claiming assault. He smiled. Because we're valuable. And you're replaceable. Everything documented, pattern of abuse, institutional protection, 6 years of crimes. Elena filed it away. But the mission wasn't complete. Not yet. Connor and Brennan forced Elena to her knees. The floor was cold, hard. Lawson stood over her. Truth or dare, Reeves. Last chance. Pick dare, and maybe we go easy on you. No. Wrong answer again. He reached for his belt. Time you learned what happens to women who don't know their place. Then someone else stood up. Megan Holloway, the young corporal Elena had met in the gym. The woman who had been assaulted 9 months ago, who had stayed silent because speaking up seemed pointless. She stood, despite the fear in her eyes, despite knowing what would happen. Stop. Her voice shook, but she didn't sit down. Just stop. Everyone froze. Lawson turned slowly. Sit down, Holloway. No. Megan's voice grew stronger. I'm not watching this again. I'm not staying silent while you destroy another person. She stepped forward. This has to stop. Connor moved toward her. You know what happens to women who don't know their place. I don't care anymore. Tears streamed down Megan's face. Someone has to speak up. Someone has to stop you. Connor hit her, hard enough to split her lip, hard enough to knock her down. Megan fell, blood streaming from her mouth. But she had done something none of the others had. She had stood up. And Elena would remember that courage for the rest of her life. Hold her down. Lawson's voice was cold. We're going to teach both of them a lesson. Brennan forced Elena flat. Connor stood over Megan, keeping her on the ground. Lawson unzipped his pants. You want to know what you are, he said. You're nothing. You're less than nothing. his face twisted with contempt. You're a filthy whore who needs to learn her place. Elena understood what was coming. The final humiliation, the ultimate degradation. She could stop it, could trigger extraction, could have tactical teams breaching the building in 90 seconds. But 90 seconds meant evidence would be incomplete. 90 seconds meant Lawson might escape conviction. 90 seconds meant the next woman might suffer the same fate. The mission demanded everything, and Elena would give it. She stayed silent, and Derek Lawson, confident in his impunity, committed the crime that would end his freedom forever. Warm liquid hit Elena's face, soaked through her hair, ran down her cheeks, pooled on the floor beneath her. Filthy whore, Lawson said. This is what you are. This is where you belong. Brennan took his turn, then Connor. 3 men using urination as a weapon, as control, as proof they could violate anyone without consequence. The women in the room were crying. Megan Holloway was bleeding on the floor, and Elena knelt in a puddle of urine, face soaked, shirt ruined, looking defeated. But her eyes were clear. Her mind was calculating. And when Lawson pulled out his phone to film the aftermath to create blackmail material, Elena looked directly at the camera and smiled. Because every frame they recorded was evidence. Every photo they took was proof. Every word they spoke was confession. They thought they were documenting their victory. They were actually building the case that would destroy them. Command, this is Reeves. Elena spoke into her subvocal microphone, the words captured by the throat mic, inaudible to everyone else. Subjects have committed multiple assaults, including sexual assault on a federal officer. Evidence collection complete. Execute arrest protocols immediately. 3 seconds of silence. Then the door exploded inward. 20 NCIS agents in tactical gear flooded the recreation building. Weapons drawn, commands shouted, hands where we can see them, on the ground, now. Brennan tried to run. An agent's boot caught him behind the knee, sent him crashing face first into the floor. Connor reached for his pocket. An agent's hand clamped down with enough force to make bones creak. Agent Rachel Whitmore stepped through the door, cold precision in every movement. Derek Lawson, you're under arrest for sexual assault of a federal officer, conspiracy, obstruction of justice. She surveyed the room. Cuff them, all of them, everyone who participated. Lawson stared at Elena, his face cycling through emotions, confusion, recognition, fear. Who are you? Elena stood slowly, legs steady despite everything, face still wet, clothes still soaked, but her voice was iron. Lieutenant Elena Reeves, Navy SEAL Team 6. She stepped closer to him. You spoke at my father's funeral 15 years ago. You talked about honor, about brotherhood, about how SEALs protect their own. Her eyes burned into his. Then you spent 6 years destroying women who trusted the same uniform my father died wearing. She leaned close. You wanted to know what I am? I'm the reckoning you never saw coming. She stepped back. And you just handed me everything I need to make sure you never hurt anyone again. Lawson's face went white. The agents dragged him away, and Elena stood in the middle of the recreation building, soaked in urine, covered in evidence, victorious. The medical examination took 3 hours. Every bruise photographed, every DNA sample collected, every violation documented for federal prosecutors. Elena endured the clinical cataloging with the same focus she had maintained throughout the operation. The urine-soaked clothing was bagged as evidence, samples taken from where Lawson and his accomplices had grabbed her. Every detail preserved, because defense attorneys would attack every inconsistency. By 0300 hours, Elena emerged from the base medical facility, clean, dressed in her service dress blues, the uniform with ribbons and trident that announced exactly who she was. Agent Whitmore was waiting, her expression grim. We have a problem. Elena's blood ran cold. Garrett? Collapsed at 2,319. Heart attack. Critical condition at Reno Medical Center. Whitmore's jaw tightened. He went down exactly when your biometrics showed maximum stress. Exactly when they were assaulting you. The timing couldn't be coincidence. Who has operational command? Deputy Director Marcus Lawson. Elena stopped walking. Lawson. Same last name as Derek, I noticed too. Whitmore pulled up her tablet. And 30 minutes before our raid, Commander Victoria Hadley tried to delete her entire email server. Someone warned her we were coming. Someone with access to operational details. Someone who knew exactly when we were moving. Elena's mind was already running calculations. Marcus Lawson, Deputy Director of NCEIS. Same last name as the predator she had just helped arrest. In charge of the operation now that Garrett was incapacitated. We need Victoria Hadley to flip, Elena said. She's our best chance of proving the connection. Already working on it. Whitmore's smile was sharp. And I have a feeling she's going to have a lot to say. The interrogation room was stark. Metal table, hard chairs, fluorescent lights that made everyone look guilty. Commander Victoria Hadley sat across from Elena and Prosecutor Diana Caldwell. Her attorney beside her, her face haggard. My client is prepared to cooperate, the attorney said, in exchange for sentencing consideration. Depends on what she's offering, Caldwell replied. Victoria looked at Elena. You're the SEAL, the one who infiltrated my base. Yes. My nephew Connor, is he facing 15 to 18 years? Victoria's face crumpled. I was trying to protect him. I thought I was helping family. She took a shaky breath. I was wrong about everything. Commander, Elena kept her voice level. If you have information about who warned you about our investigation, now is the time to share it. Victoria was quiet, then she made her decision. It was Marcus Lawson, Deputy Director Marcus Lawson at NCEIS. The words landed like bombs. He called me 3 times in the last week. Said there was an undercover operative at Falcon. Said I should be careful about what got reported through official channels. How do you know Marcus Lawson? He's my sister's husband, my brother-in-law. Victoria met Elena's eyes. And he's Derek Lawson's older brother. Silence. Absolute silence. They have different last names because Derek took their stepfather's name when he was adopted at 12. But they're blood brothers. Her voice dropped. Marcus has been protecting Derek for 6 years, across 3 different bases. Every time Derek's activities got close to investigation, Marcus made the evidence disappear. Elena felt pieces clicking into place. Marcus Lawson wasn't just compromised by family connection. He was directly protecting his own brother, using his position at NCIS to enable systematic abuse, to warn predators when investigations got too close, to destroy evidence that threatened his family. Can you prove this? Caldwell asked. I have saved voicemails from Marcus, 2 of them, warning me about the investigation. Victoria gave a number. They're on my personal phone, passcode 4927, folder labeled family. Whitmore was already pulling up phone records. Got them. 2 voicemails from Marcus Lawson's personal cell. 3 minutes 47 seconds and 2 minutes 12 seconds. She looked at Caldwell. This is probable cause for his arrest. More than that, Caldwell's smile was predatory. This is conspiracy, abuse of authority, using an official position to enable criminal activity. She stood. Marcus Lawson is going to federal prison for 20 years. The operation moved fast. FBI tactical teams staged at Marcus Lawson's residence in Maryland. 0600 hours Eastern Time. Still dark. Perfect for tactical entry. The call came through 90 minutes later. Subject detained. He attempted to destroy a laptop during entry. Device recovered intact. Whitmore's expression was grim. Preliminary examination shows deleted files related to NAS Falcon investigation, including operational details about Lieutenant Reeves's undercover assignment. Elena processed this. Marcus had known she was a SEAL, had known she was undercover, had known the mission parameters. Did he warn Derek directly? No direct communication in the last 2 weeks. He warned Victoria, expecting her to handle it quietly. Whitmore shook her head. He didn't expect you to actually gather evidence. Didn't expect the raid. When it happened, he panicked. And now he's going to pay for it, along with everyone else. Whitmore looked at Elena. You did it. You actually took down an entire conspiracy. Elena thought about the recreation building, about kneeling in a puddle of urine, about Lawson's face when he called her a filthy whore. We're not done yet, she said. Not until they're all convicted. Not until the system changes. Then let's finish it. 6 weeks of preparation. Prosecutor Diana Caldwell built her case with devastating precision. Day 1 opened with Elena's video evidence. The courtroom watched in silence as Lawson forced alcohol into her hands, as Brennan blocked exits, as Connor hit Megan Holloway. And finally, the assault itself. 3 men urinating on a kneeling woman while calling her a filthy whore. 2 jurors cried. All 12 looked at the defendants with undisguised contempt. The victim testimony followed. 17 women, one after another, describing identical patterns, same location, same tactics, same dismissal of their complaints. Megan Holloway took the stand, described her assault 9 months prior, described watching Elena endure what she had endured, described finding the courage to stand up. I was terrified, she told the jury, but I couldn't watch them destroy another woman. I couldn't stay silent anymore. She looked at Elena. She showed me that strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about transforming pain into purpose. The defense tried everything, claimed entrapment, argued provocation, suggested fabricated evidence. Judge Margaret Sullivan shut down each attempt. The defense's entrapment argument fails because evidence shows defendants were predisposed to commit these crimes. The recording was legal. The evidence is admissible. When Derek Lawson took the stand in his own defense, Caldwell destroyed him. She pulled up text messages he had sent before that Friday night. Fresh meat tonight. Reeves. She'll break easy. She looked at the jury. Does that sound like consent? Lawson went pale. That was just talk. Just talk? You planned to break her. You'd done it before, 17 times before. Caldwell's voice was ice. And you thought you'd get away with it again. Then she delivered the killing blow. Staff Sergeant Lawson, do you remember attending a funeral at Arlington National Cemetery 15 years ago? The funeral of Lieutenant Michael Reeves? Lawson froze. Yes. You delivered the eulogy. You spoke about honor, about brotherhood, about how SEALs protect their own. Caldwell turned to face the jury. Lieutenant Michael Reeves was the father of Lieutenant Elena Reeves, the woman you urinated on while calling her a filthy whore. She turned back to Lawson. You hugged a 13-year-old girl at her father's funeral. You promised her that SEALs protect their own. Her voice dropped. Is this what protection looks like? Is this what honor means? Derek Lawson broke down on the witness stand, and the jury saw exactly what he was. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. Guilty, all counts, all defendants. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. Judge Sullivan allowed victim impact statements first. Megan Holloway spoke about trauma and recovery, about finding her voice after 9 months of silence, about the courage that came from watching someone refuse to be broken. I spent 9 months believing I was worthless, she said. Believing what they told me, that I was nothing, that no one would believe me. She looked at Elena. Then I watched a woman kneel in that puddle and smile at her attackers. And I understood. Her voice strengthened. She wasn't broken. She was gathering evidence. She was fighting back in a way they couldn't see. Tears streamed down her face. That's when I knew. Silence only protects predators. And I was done being silent. Then Sullivan addressed the defendants. Staff Sergeant Derek Lawson. Her voice was cold. You operated a predatory network for 6 years. You assaulted at least 17 women. You recruited accomplices. You corrupted the system. She paused. I sentence you to 25 years in a federal prison, dishonorable discharge, forfeiture of all benefits, lifetime registration as a sex offender. Tyler Brennan received 18 years. Connor Hadley received 15 years. Commander Victoria Hadley received 8 years under her cooperation agreement, and Deputy Director Marcus Lawson, 20 years for obstruction of justice and conspiracy. You used your position to protect your brother, the judge told him. You enabled the destruction of 17 women's lives. You corrupted the institution you swore to serve. Her contempt was palpable. You are the worst kind of criminal, the kind who wears a badge while committing crimes. 6 people, 98 years of combined sentences, 6 careers destroyed, 6 predators removed from positions where they could ever hurt anyone again. The reforms came swiftly. Judge Sullivan's orders triggered investigations at 17 military installations. 147 previously dismissed cases were reopened. 32 additional predators identified and prosecuted. 14 commanding officers faced charges for enabling abuse. Congress held hearings. Elena testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee. Her case became the catalyst for the Military Justice Improvement and Victim Protection Act. Independent civilian oversight of all sexual assault investigations, automatic access to legal counsel for victims, mandatory minimum sentences for retaliation. The culture began to shift, slowly but visibly. Reporting rates increased, prosecution rates improved. Victims found their voices because Elena had proven that speaking up, armed with evidence and courage, could destroy even the most protected predators. Colonel William Garrett recovered from his heart attack. 6 months of rehabilitation. Then back to consulting work. His first project, training programs for undercover operations involving sexual assault investigations. He called Elena the day the program was approved. "Your operation is now doctrine," he said. "The techniques you developed, the evidence protocols, the psychological preparation, all of it will be taught to every NCIS agent." "I didn't develop anything, sir. I just survived." "That's exactly what makes it valuable. You proved it could be done." He paused. "There's something else I need to tell you. Something I should have said years ago." Elena waited. The night your father died, the helicopter crash. It wasn't mechanical failure. Her breath caught. It was sabotage. Someone tampered with the rotor assembly. We never found proof, never found who did it. The investigation was shut down by people who didn't want answers. Garrett's voice was heavy. "I've spent 15 years trying to find the truth and trying to protect his daughter the way he would have wanted." Elena felt tears she hadn't allowed herself in years. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I didn't have answers, only suspicions, and I didn't want to burden you with mysteries that might never be solved." He paused. "But you deserve to know. Your father didn't die because of an accident. He died because someone wanted him dead. And someday, if you want to find out who, I'll help you." Elena processed this revelation. Another mystery, another truth waiting to be uncovered. But that was for another day. "Thank you, sir, for everything. Thank me by continuing to be the warrior he raised you to be." 5 years after the Falcon operation, Lieutenant Commander Elena Reeves stood before a new class of SEAL candidates. She wore the uniform of someone who had been promoted twice for exceptional service, the trident on her chest gleaming in California sunlight. "You're about to earn this symbol," she told them. "You're about to join the most elite special operations community in the world." She paused. "But the hardest enemies you'll face won't always wear foreign uniforms. Sometimes they'll wear the same uniform you do." She pulled up carefully redacted images from her Falcon operation. "5 years ago, I went undercover to expose a predatory network. I gathered evidence by allowing myself to be assaulted." She met their eyes. "That operation resulted in 6 people imprisoned for 98 years, 17 victims finally receiving justice, comprehensive reforms across the entire military." The candidates listened in complete silence. "I tell you this not to glorify what I did, but to make you understand that being a SEAL means more than physical courage." Her voice strengthened. "It means moral courage. It means protecting your teammates from all threats, including internal ones. It means never tolerating abuse, never dismissing complaints, never prioritizing reputation over protection." She looked at each face. "The uniform you're about to wear carries weight, honor, legacy, responsibility." Her voice dropped. "Don't ever let anyone use that uniform to hurt the people it's supposed to protect." After the address, a young female candidate approached, 23 years old, determination in her eyes. "Ma'am, would you do it again? Endure what you endured?" Elena considered the question. "If it was the only way to stop predators and protect others?" "Yes." She paused. "But I hope it's never the only way again. The reforms we implemented mean victims have options now. You shouldn't have to sacrifice yourself to get justice." Her voice softened. "That's the whole point of what I did, so that others wouldn't have to." That evening, Elena drove to a federal prison in Southern California, maximum security, where Derek Lawson was serving year 5 of his 25-year sentence. She hadn't planned to come, hadn't wanted to see him again, but something had been unfinished for 5 years, and she needed closure. The visitation room was sterile, glass partition, phones for communication, guards watching everything. Lawson was brought in wearing earnage. His hair was gray now, his face lined. He looked at Elena through the glass. Recognition, shame, fear. "Lieutenant Reeves?" His voice was rough. "I didn't expect you to ever want to see me." "I didn't either." Elena picked up the phone. "But I needed to understand something." "What?" "My father's funeral, 15 years ago. You spoke about honor, about brotherhood, about how SEALs protect their own." She met his eyes through the glass. "Was any of it real? Did you believe those words? Or were you already a predator?" Lawson was silent for a long moment. "I believe them," he said finally. "When I spoke at your father's funeral, I meant every word. Michael Reeves saved my life. He was the best man I ever knew." His voice broke. But something changed. "I don't know when. I don't know how. I started seeing women differently, as objects, as targets, and every time I got away with it, it got easier." Tears ran down his face. "I became everything your father stood against, everything I once hated, and I don't even know how it happened." Elena watched him cry. This man who had destroyed 17 women, who had urinated on her while calling her a filthy whore, who had betrayed every principle he once claimed to believe. She felt nothing. No satisfaction, no rage, just emptiness where hatred might have been. "My father taught me that warriors protect those who can't protect themselves," she said quietly. "That's what I did. That's what I'll keep doing." She stood. "I hope you find whatever peace is possible for someone who did what you did, but I didn't come here for your redemption." She met his eyes one last time. "I came here for mine." She hung up the phone, walked out of the visitation room, and never looked back. Elena drove back to San Diego as the sun set over the Pacific. The same ocean her father had watched from this coast. The same sky that had covered his service and his sacrifice. Her phone buzzed. A message from Megan Holloway. "5 years ago today, I watched you kneel in that puddle and smile at the men who thought they had broken you. That moment changed my life. You showed me that strength isn't about avoiding pain. It's about transforming pain into purpose. I run a support program now for assault survivors in the military. 47 women have come through our doors this year. 47 women who spoke up because they saw what you did and believed justice was possible. You didn't just save me, Elena. You saved all of them. And every woman who will find the courage to speak because of what we built together. Thank you for showing me that silence only protects predators, and that one person's courage can change everything." Elena read the message twice. 47 women in 1 year, because one night she had refused to be broken. Another message from Colonel Garrett. "The new victim advocacy protocols you designed just got approved for fleet-wide implementation. Every ship, every base, every command, your legacy keeps growing." Elena pulled into her apartment complex, walked to the balcony overlooking the ocean, and stood in the fading light, thinking about her father, about the promise she had made at his grave, to honor his memory, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, to never let predators operate in the shadow of the uniform he died wearing. She had kept that promise, and she would keep it for the rest of her life. The sun disappeared below the horizon. Stars emerged, ancient lights that had witnessed countless warriors stand and fall and rise again. Elena watched them, a warrior at peace, a survivor at rest, a legacy just beginning. They had called her a filthy whore. They had pissed all over her. And then she had used them to wipe it all clean, with evidence that couldn't be dismissed, with courage that couldn't be broken, with justice that couldn't be denied. That's what warriors do. They protect others at personal cost. They fight battles others won't fight. They stand in the gap between predators and victims, and they refuse to move until justice is served. Elena Reeves had stood in that gap, had endured unimaginable violation, had transformed personal trauma into systemic change. and had proven that sometimes the hardest battles require becoming the sacrifice that saves everyone else. The mission was complete, but the legacy would continue. In every woman who found the courage to speak, in every victim who believed justice was possible, in every warrior who understood that honor meant protecting the vulnerable, Elena's story would be told for generations, not because she was a victim, but because she refused to let victimhood be the end of her story. She had taken everything they did to her and used it to destroy them. That wasn't just survival, that was victory, and it was only the beginning. The end. In memory of every service member who has experienced assault while wearing the uniform of the United States, and in honor of those who found the courage to speak. Silence protects predators. Speaking up, backed by evidence and courage, an absolute refusal to accept injustice, changes everything.